for a new clientele. They built up new places in West Oakland. That's where Operation Nutcracker unfolded. And not far from there are new developments. Who is moving into these new developments? Is it the residents of the Acorn and Campbell Village? And what else is over there? Acorn 2. Are they moving in to these new homes? No. There's a whole new clientele of people. How about Uptown? I didn't know Oakland had an Uptown until they redeveloped it. Now there's a community called Uptown. They built an ice skating rink. Now you knew right off the top, they didn't build ice skating rinks for you. We don't like ice skating. We sing about roller skating. Right? We got it in the song. Now you got to go all the way to, I don't know, Fremont.
Milpitas.
Dublin. To get your skate on.
Dublin doesn't have a skating rink?
Yes, it does.
It does?
San Ramon. Is it San Ramon or Dublin? We're not advertising for them. They're not going to give us a dime. So when they decided to make something for entertainment in Oakland, is what was constructed made to entertain you, or was it made to entertain somebody else? We got a problem with ice skating where I come from. Not that we can't ice skate, but you know, the cold. These I can warm up in the roller skating rink. It's just cold. It's not the entertainment of choice for me. My mama, my grand bowlers. All the Louisianians, all the Texans, bowlers. So now you want nightlife in the city of Oakland. Where's the bowling alley? You don't think black folk in Oakland like to bowl? Of course we do. And you'll find us bowling all up and down in all the neighboring cities, but we can't bowl in the city of Oakland. So if there was that great a desire for family activity for the current residents of Oakland, you don't find those desires played out in development plans. The development plans seem to meet the desires of other people. 10,000, Jerry Brown said, new residents. And in each of these areas where there's been these horrific police actions, the areas of the actions have both been areas of redevelopment. Now, when we're dealing in this kind of issue, you should know we're dealing in billions of dollars. So when we met with the city attorney, Brother Greg was there with us. He told us before we started the meeting, we're not going to agree. Maybe we should have just stopped the meeting and said, well, we're out of here. Why waste our time? Your decision's already made. He said, we're not going to agree. I know you don't want the injunction, and the injunctions are going to happen. Okay. Why are you so sad? What has locked you so firmly, Mr. Rousseau, on a decision? Is it based on effectiveness of gang injunction in other cities? No, because there's no evidence of that. There's no evidence that says that gang injunctions have actually had any impact on what they call gang activity. What it has had is an impact on gentrification. It has not lessened crime where we live. It has removed us from an area so that somebody else could live there. So even though Cabrini Green is gone and Ivy Wells is gone and the other one, Robert Taylor Homes, they're gone, but isn't there still a lot of crime in Chicago?
41 murders in a weekend.
41 murders in one weekend. Now they stripped the housing projects. They tore them down. In fact, the murder rate in Chicago is so horrific you would think you're in Iraq or somewhere in the height of a war. Now we understand that there's violence and we agree that we must find ways to lessen the violence. but is what you call a gang injunction actually an effort to lessen a violent community, or is it an effort to make available land for the wealthy? So Mr. Russell said to us, we're going to disagree. We're locked on this. Well, what locked you? When I walked into the court procedure to hear the judge render his decision, there were young men in the room who were accused and whose names were on the injunction. Some of them were represented by the ACLU. Pardon me. The ACLU issued, I don't know what you call a legal procedure, but they had a procedure that allowed them to speak into the record.
They issued a petition to be a friend of the court.
A petition to be the friend of the court. And they did in fact speak, and I think 2 of the young men had attorneys. There's 15 on the list. And so the 2 or 3 attorneys and the ACLU spoke of the offense of the rights of the people. But before they spoke, the judge already said, I've already made my decision. So what would you like to say? Well, they should have said, well, Judge, since you already made your decision, I don't have nothing to say. We'll see you in the next court. They could have said that. Why waste my time talking to you? If you've already made your decision, what are we here for? We've been down in L.A. in the case of Oscar, which we'll come to in a moment. But if that judge comes in there and says, I've made my decision, Mr. Raines and Mr. Stein, what would you like to say? You made your decision based on what? The judge must hear and review the facts to make a fair decision. And if all the facts are not in his hand, then he cannot render a fair decision. So if the judge needed to hear from the young men that were accused or the attorneys, if the judge needed to hear from other pieces or persons that bring evidence, that bring more truth to the decision that ought to be made, seemed to me it would be more fair for the judge to say, I've considered your drafts that you've written. I'd like to hear more. I have some questions. Answer my questions, and then I will render a decision. But for a judge to come and say, I've made my decision. Now you talk. But that's really a waste of time. What is it that have locked these systems so thoroughly on what's called a gang injunction? See, we're dealing with corporate greed and its impact on the body politic. I wanted to share with you, before we bring us all up to speed on the case for Oscar, that our town hall meetings found their beginning in Gist in San Francisco. You might remember there had been this long fight, and still is, against the toxic poisoning of our children by the corporate developer called Lennar. Like with the oil leak in the Gulf, the mechanisms that should have been in place to prevent that tragic oil leaking from occurring were not in place because of corporate greed. There was a bridge, I think in Ohio, that collapsed about 8 years ago with people driving across it. And when the engineers went back and studied why did this bridge collapse, they found out that the developers that built the bridge, on the parts where the bridge triangles fastened, there's a plate that goes across to hold that bridge in place. Some of our children are science students and they build bridges for experiments in class. Well, they built a bridge with millions of cars crossing the bridge, but in order to shave the budget and to save some money, the plate that held the parts of the bridge together was supposed to be a certain thickness of steel. But in order to save some money, they shaved the thickness down and put a smaller plate, which was about a half an inch smaller than it was supposed to have been. When the Titanic sunk, when it hit the iceberg, do you know that it was revealed that one of the major problems they experienced was the rivets, that's the steel bolts that attach